What surprises you about Palantir?
I think I thought I knew a lot about Palantir before coming in, and to see that it's actually true and implemented on the everyday.
So what is true on the everyday?
I feel like how we do things is just very unique and different to anything I've ever experienced. I've worked in like big tech before, but this is just a completely new way of giving people responsibility of solving problems.
You want the coat or without the coat?
You tell me. Formal or casual?
I think the coat's going to be more charismatic, but no, take the without the coat. Actually, let's do without the coat. Okay, tell me about yourself.
I'm Akhilesh. I grew up in India, go to school in Iowa, study.
Where did you go to school in Iowa?
Iowa State, Ames.
Good.
It's a suburban town.
Yeah, I know Ames. Yeah. And what did you learn? What did you learn there? What do you study?
I'm a double major in math and CS with a minor in aerospace.
I'm Ethan, and I went to Middlebury College, a community college, and Michigan.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So how did you go from Middlebury, a language school, then to community college? Did you get like kicked out?
When I went to Middlebury, COVID hit, and I decided to transition to community college, which was actually my favorite educational experience I ever had.
Why?
I got to work with 40, 50-year-old mothers going back to school. I got to work with people who were of all walks of life. And I feel that in the educational system, we put a lot of emphasis on prestige and precociousness. And I think that's a mistake.
The shift from big tech to Palantir's unique approach to problem solving really highlights a commitment to empowering employees. This hands-on responsibility, especially for early career employees, sets Palantir apart in how it cultivates talent willing to challenge norms.
I mean, there's no oversight except from people in your team, right? The only people who are telling you whether you're doing a good job or a bad job are people who are directly approximate to the problems and the challenges you're facing, which makes sense. I think a lot of the time in traditional hierarchy, someone doesn't actually see what you're doing, and yet they're still telling you whether you're doing a good job or a bad job.
I think that my background in jazz music and improvisation and not being like trapped into a single box, I think that's somewhere that I've really enjoyed getting to be able to do on my team, but ultimately your team has to give you the platform to let you do that.
What is something technical you learned that you've applied here?
I've worked on optimization problems. I've worked on building full stack applications. I've worked on boot camps where we're writing linear solver models within a week. So it's very, very different things, but then all of that in this one internship.
How often do we see companies where employees feel empowered to experiment and break out of traditional roles? This flexibility, especially with a focus on real-time feedback from close teammates, is rare in the tech world. It's a formula that lets people bring in unique skills like jazz improvisation to the table. Isn't that the true test of innovation?
I feel like the unsexiest technical problems have been the most interesting, personally. Also,
Such as?
data migration. Sometimes it's just a matter of like data cleaning that made it impossible for data to be even utilized. So obviously we're doing like a lot of progress in AI and all these fields, but I also think it's really interesting to think about.
Well, the AI won't work unless the data stack is integrated. So it's a lot.
Exactly.
When people say that AI doesn't work, it's often because the underlying software doesn't work.
Yeah. So helping our clients just be able to leverage their data and make it usable in the first place, I think is really interesting.
Is it okay if I ask you a question?
You ask me one question and then we're going to stop.
Do we consider the unsexy side of tech, like data migration, as the real engine behind AI? It's fascinating to think that the real power of AI is only unleashed when foundational data issues are solved. Without clean integrated data, even the best AI can't deliver.
How do you think, coming from a background in philosophy, helped you lead a company today? And why do you think it makes you different than maybe someone that comes from just a purely technical background?
I tend to think the value that, for better or worse, I brought to Palantir is a combination of a moral frame with a certain level of rigor. So one of the reasons I've been so critical of things on college campuses is like leaving the morality aside, the rigor. It's like you need to understand the contradictions in your system, and then building an operational culture that is in unison with that, so that you attract and retain basically people who want to, want to become better versions of themselves. How do you become a better version of yourself? You identify what is actually uniquely valuable. You learn how to use that skill in the context of a platform, software and cultural, where your unique value shines and lifts the whole platform because of the enormous strength of your rare talent integrated into, to use your terms, jazz terms, an ensemble. And one of the crazy things about Palantir is like the Palantir degree currently is the most valuable degree in the US, bar none. And that 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, that was not the case. It is the case now.
This blend of philosophical rigor and moral focus is a big part of why Palantir's culture is so distinctive. The idea of creating a space where rare talents integrate seamlessly into a larger ensemble is a unique approach that sets Palantir apart in an industry often driven by pure technical skill.
Who are you? What do you do? When did you join?
My name is Ben Bernstein. I'm a forward deployed engineer, and I joined about 4 months ago.
Where'd you go to school?
I went to University of Pennsylvania.
Where'd you grow up?
Right outside Philadelphia. Very close to.
And I ran into you the other day. The reason why you're on this video is I asked you what surprised you the most in joining Palantir. And what surprised you the most, besides that you're on video now and you're about to be famous?
That was a little bit surprising. The biggest thing that surprised me, I think, was the lack of really true hierarchy at the company. And they sort of mentioned it a little bit in the interviews, but it's hard to get a sense.
What does true hierarchy mean, and what contact have you had with true hierarchy? It sounds like true crime.
Yeah. In a previous job, I had a direct boss.
Well, you don't have to mention the name, but like what kind of company and like how did the boss, like was it, how was it different than this?
Yeah,
I guess
it was,
nominally I'm your boss.
Right. It was a product design consulting company, and I had a person who was directly in charge of exactly what I was doing every day, and who sort of made decisions about how well I did and gave me direct feedback and updates. And at the end of the day was the person who was doing my reviews at the end of the year and things like that.
How many companies can genuinely operate without a rigid hierarchy? The lack of direct bosses at Palantir isn't just a novel structure. It actually empowers engineers to make decisions and shape their roles, something almost unheard of in more traditional settings.
And I had a very specific reporting structure of this person got their feedback from someone above them and someone above them and so forth, and that trickled down very directly. Whereas here, from what I've noticed, is there's a lot of ad hoc control and authority that just comes up to who's actually doing the work and who's actually involved and who's closest to the matter at hand, and that I think gives a lot more.
I mean, my caricature of this is in a normal organization, you have a chain of command where sometimes, certainly from a technical perspective, the delta between what you'd want to build and what you're being asked to build is fairly wide. Mm-hmm. And there's no way to get the iteration of what you should build back to the top, since it all goes down. There's no upward function.
Yeah.
And authority is derived purely from the role, and therefore the compensation. But at Palantir, mostly the authority is derived from who is the subject matter expert on this technical problem.
Right, and maybe also even who has the most experience with the problem itself and with the client and who's the end user, because they have the best sense of what the end user actually needs.
And what technical challenge are you working on now?
Right now I'm working on data harmonization for one of our clients, dealing with lots of internal data that they generate on their own and external data that they're pulling in.
And why is that a difficult problem?
It's difficult because they have to deal with different data sets that all have different levels of data quality. So a lot of the information that they get in from outside sources is dirty at best, and sometimes it changes day to day. And they need to be able to handle all of those challenges and pull everything together to get a full view of their entire operation.
Ergo, see the pipelining in Palantir Foundry and Ontology.
Right.
Nice to have you here. Take care.
Imagine if more companies operated like this. Could it lead to faster, more effective solutions? At Palantir, authority is earned through insight and experience rather than rank, which means the person closest to the issue is empowered to shape the outcome. It's a refreshing take on organizational structure.